So to everybody who's just joined, good afternoon. I think it's afternoon almost everywhere now, not morning. My name is Adeola Whitney. I'm the CEO of Reading Partners, and I am delighted to welcome you to Reading Partners Black History Month event, celebrating Black children and the power of representation. We are so excited to have opened this event up to our larger Reading Partners communities and just to the larger audience of the public and folks who may not know Reading Partners that well. And recognizing that some of you may not know who we are or what you just signed up to come and participate in, let me just share a little bit about Reading Partners, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about what we're going to be doing before I turn it over to my incredible colleague, Zenobia. So Reading Partners is a national nonprofit organization. We've been in existence now for well over 20 years. And what we do is we teach children how to read. And we do that by mobilizing community volunteers to provide students with proven individualized reading support and the type of reading support that they need to get to grade level by the time that they're in fourth grade. The majority of the students that we serve are Black and Brown children, which is part of the reason why in Black History Month, we are focused on celebrating our children and the importance and the power of ensuring that they are represented in the stories that we read, which is part of the reason why we are so excited to also have our esteemed guests. At Reading Partners, we believe that stories are a gift and a great opportunity to teach. And we focus a lot on race, equity, diversity, and inclusion here. And one of the ways that we're proud of the culture that we've built as an organization is that we gather our staff and our incredible AmeriCorps members for our monthly series of leadership stories. And this is where we get to hear from various Reading Partners community members to share their formative personal and professional experiences that have led them to where they are today. And we're going to ask at some point, we're going to ask our guest to also share a little bit of her leadership story. So for all of you in the virtual audience, we hope that this conversation is fun, inspiring, engaging. We're going to do what we call like a fishbowl style of a conversation. So it's really going to be between my two friends and I, Zenobia, my incredible colleague, and our new friend, Veronica, Chapman, an esteemed and amazing children's author. So you're not going to be chiming in and asking a lot of questions. You can put things in the chat if you'd like. But I almost want you to imagine we're all in the same room. I'm actually in New Orleans right now for work. Imagine we're on like a beautiful velour, let's call it maybe a navy blue velour or velvet sofa. Chesterfield, maybe sofa, and I'm sitting down next to Zenobia on one side of me, Veronica on the other side, and we're just having a chat. We're having a chat about Black children and the importance of literacy and how they're represented, and you're sitting next to us. So that's what we want this to be like. Also know that we're going to be interrupting each other, and it's not because we're being rude, but it is part of the Black woman experience, Black people experience, the diaspora that are Black people. We interrupt each other. We do so in music, and then we call it call and response. I call it call and response just in our typical talk. So this isn't going to be formal. I'm not reading a script. We are going to have a conversation. We only have an hour. Zenobia, Veronica, and I could probably talk for like 4 or 5 hours. We were already, some of y'all probably heard us talking about a little bit of everything earlier. See, I'm already like kind of veering off. So yes, we're not being rude. We interrupt each other. We're having a conversation. That's what we do. That's how we communicate. So without further ado, I am truly, truly thrilled and honored to introduce you to my co-host, an incredibly dynamic leader and colleague. I'm also her MOS member, Mutual Admiration Society. Her name is Zenobia Judd-Williams. Zenobia is the executive director of Reading Partners Baltimore. I can't do a full, long bio of her because it will take all day because that's just how much she's done. But I will say she is truly a magnificent leader. She has held several incredible leadership roles in large organizations and small organizations in schools. She's worked in the education industry, health and human services organizations. And I'm so delighted to share this virtual stage with her. So without further ado, I'm introducing y'all to Zenobia, and we'll pass it on to her.
Thank you, Adeola. I really appreciate that introduction. I feel more important than I actually am, I think sometimes. But thank you. Once again, I'm Zenobia Judd-Williams. I'm the executive director of Reading Partners Baltimore. I am one of a magnificent group of executive directors that are around the country in 12 other regions. We make up 12 regions. And what we do is simply help children read and help children improve their life through reading. Literacy is at the top of our list in terms of what we do for kids and how we want to impact their lives and how we want them to see their lives. Now, Ola just gave us that big view picture of why we're here. I'm going to give you a smaller snip of why we're here. We're here to celebrate Black History Month. We're here to celebrate the children that we provide services to all across this country. And when you think about providing services to children and the work that we do, we realize that we have to always be in front of you, talking to you about how we do that better, how it looks, how they receive it, how we need to be better about disseminating the information that we do. This is a teachable moment for all of us. And so when you think about teachable moments, what do? You look for partners that can help you do that teaching, and that may also be walking that same journey with you in a different capacity, but also doing the same work. So guess what? That's what landed us with our wonderful, wonderful speaker today, Veronica. Veronica Chapman is our outstanding speaker. She is the founder of the Black Children's Reading Week initiative. She is also the CEO of Boxed Out. She's a dynamic, outstanding person, and we can't wait until you hear some of the wonderful stories that she's going to tell us today. Now, before we get started, Ola mentioned earlier about our tradition, our ritual that we do in Reading Partners called Leadership Stories. So once we turn it over to Veronica and she starts to talk to us a little bit more about who she is, I don't want to steal her thunder. That's why I'm not telling you more. Believe me, she's a dynamic woman, and you can't wait to listen to what she has to say. But what I will ask her is, Veronica, when you begin to talk, will you please tell us your leadership story?
Sure, sure.
Absolutely.
One, thank you all for having me. I am just so excited. Like, this is going to be so much fun, and I've already had fun in the preparation for this. So, as it relates to the leadership story, a key thing to know is that I feel like ever since I was a child, I've always been a purpose-driven person, and I've been singularly focused on why I'm here and how I can be about doing what I'm here to do.
Mhm.
Um, so my leadership story, honestly, has been acting. This is what I've observed, and this is what it ties into Black Children's Book Week. Acting on my visions and being committed to that has influenced so many people around me without me even knowing. So it's like if those of us, if we really stay focused and we really have the courage to act on our visions, we inspire people around us just by being who we are and doing what we're here to do. And I really think that's the key to my leadership story, because a lot of what people tell me, whether they be friends or people who just observe, is like, hey, like, I see you. I see your commitment and what you're committed to doing, how you move without having the answers, sometimes not even having all the funding, and you still move. And I think my leadership journey is modeling how you can move, in faith that you can get things done, and just being committed to something greater than you.
Excellent, excellent. Let me ask you a quick question because it's been burning in my brain. I know that everyone, I just announced that you're the founder of Black Children's Black Children's
Book week.
Book Week a few
Mhm.
seconds ago, but I'm sure they're burning to know, like, what is that? Tell us about that. What does that mean? What does that look like? And what does that show up like in communities across the country?
Oh
Mhm.
wow. So for me, okay, so the basis is I love spreading joy and love. And I thought about, we thought about like this time we spent in quarantine or the last few years, just ever since I was a young person, it's like we're always witnessing a tragedy. Like I remember marching for Amadou Diallo, and when I was an undergrad, and ever since then there've been so many people who have been murdered by police. I've had a cousin who was a victim of gun violence. There's things that I feel like Black people we experience at a greater rate than other people. And if somebody who looks like us, who we may not know, is harmed, we all mourn. It's a collective thing that we do. And I said, you know what? We need and deserve, and our children need and deserve more joy, more joyful things, more.
Yes.
I call like Black Children's Book Week scheduled joy, right? It's like a time where people can activate and say, we do these things for Black children, or we have this book for Black children, or we teach Black children how to read, and we can collectively do something in this week or try something new in this week in celebration of Black children and the power of their representation. So for me, Black Children's Book Week started with believing that Black children and Black people deserve to experience more joy.
Outstanding.
Wow.
Outstanding. And you know, what's more important, what's very important about what you said they deserve what they deserve. How do we help them get that? Well, how do we help them get what they deserve? So tell me what kind of activities are actually going on that around the country that might be exciting to other folks.
I have to tell you, so I'll just tell you exactly like how this even started. This is the second year. And basically, I think it was the September of 2021. And this idea came to my mind. And I have a platform called Black Baby Books that makes it easier to discover children's books with Black characters. And because of that, I have, connections with like a lot of Black self-published authors or a lot of parents and educators looking for books with Black representation. And you know how it's so important for us to take stock of what we have. Like a lot of times, especially in the culture of like influencers and celebrity, we're looking at all the things that people have, but we don't always take stock of what we have. So I said, I have these people who are committed to Black children and Black representation, and they really understand the power of it. And I said, why not present this vision, share this vision with them and see how people respond. And that's exactly what I did. Last January, I hosted this virtual event and I gave a presentation and I said, the suicide rates for Black children are increasing. Research shows that that positive representation can positively impact their self-esteem and serve as a protective force against racism. And the fact is that we all have within us the ability to do something. Yep. And a lot of times I feel like it's easy for people to become disenchanted. They'll say like, I marched and it didn't change, or I gave and it didn't change. And I feel like for me, I wanted to focus on something proactive and joyful, because while all those things are very important, I'm finding that a lot of people want instant gratification, right? So if it doesn't change right now, they're like, oh, it doesn't work.
It's not working. It's
not working. It's not working. So I feel like, and I just truly believe that if we keep doing the same things and only doing the same things, when people become disenchanted, it can lead to inaction. So I said, you know what? Let's do something joyful and fun and proactive, because we know that representation matters and the positive impact that it has, and the results are there. Like even as an author, when I go to a reading, I just did a reading in Harlem on Monday. When I go to a reading, the kids are like, oh my gosh, you wrote this book and you wrote this book for us. And I see a Black character and I'm Black and proud. There's all these things, and it's instant, right? So what we're finding, as a result of that meeting, that when I present the idea, there was like a wave of joy and love. And like I said, I call it an activating force, because someone told me, I've had this book club for years, but because you've launched Black Children's Book Week, it forced me to push to like do something different and figure out how we can level up in celebration of the week. And so yesterday I saw this really cool event in Athens, Georgia, where they had like 8 and 9-year-old Black children who had published books, and they were honoring them in the library. And it was a panel. And the cool thing about the way it's structured is, and I told them in the meeting, like, this is not about me. This is like, yes, it's my vision. Yes, I'm like, it's my idea. That's wonderful. But it's going to take collective efforts to really, if we want to raise the vibration in the world for Black children, it's going to be a collective thing. And a lot of us are already doing things, and we need to do it in concert, because you know why? Because symphonies are powerful, So, it was like, and it was like a wave of joy, like inner child joy for adults. They were like, oh man, I'm 8 years old this week, and these are the kind of things that people shared. Wow. And that's why you had people, celebrating in Nigeria, in Ghana, their events this year, in Canada, in the UK, because we all understand the power of it. And I think the other feedback that I got was, I feel like I could have a piece of something and do something powerful. And that's what the week provides. And I'm just so grateful for that.
That's incredible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I was, my next thought was, what has the reception been like? But I see right now, you've already answered that. The reception has been outstanding, and which we could only expect. It's like our communities are hungry, right? for that kind of support, that kind of uplift that our young people need in order to kind of excel and to achieve in life. And so, what the work you're doing is outstanding.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you.
And Zenobia, connected to that, something that I'm thinking a lot about too is, I think about the students we serve at Reading Partners. And I think I shared this with you earlier, Veronica, or I may have said it at the beginning of the call, but over 90% of the kids that Reading Partners serves are Black and Brown children. And these are children who are struggling to read at grade level by half a grade level and up to 2 to 2.5 grade levels behind where their current grade level is in reading. And knowing that you may be struggling in reading, and then to have a book that reflects people who look like you is also incredible. And I'm just curious, through all of the work that you've done, what's been your experience with introducing your books to young children who may be struggling to read, who may be on that journey and have just, come up against some roadblocks, and how have books that represent them really impacted them and played a role in their literacy journey?
It's been I'll say this. So, for example, I was brought in to do a reading by organization called Behind the Book in the Bronx, and a lot of the students in the Bronx are Black and they speak Spanish. Spanish is their primary language, and Spanish is my second language. So it's been interesting too in that situation where you're really behind reading level because you're trying to learn a new language in a new place. And so given presentations there, it's been like really cool because I think being able to see yourself represented, even if it's not exactly like your culture, but you're still Black people, wherever we are, when we see each other, we see ourselves. That's just something that's real. And I remember, meeting children who, English is their second language, and they were just so excited to even learn how to, learn English by reading this book with Black representation. And the other thing I'll say is that, so for my books in particular, I write so children believe in themselves. Like, that's the only reason that I write. So all the books, my books are like, I Know I Can and King Khalid Proud. And this is all about how proud can you become, how can you make yourself proud, and how do you grow up believing in your potential and possibilities. So that's the only reason I write. And it's interesting because when children see themselves represented in positive stories like that, and then get to meet a Black author, it forces, they push themselves because they feel the love that it was written with, and they feel the love coming from me when I talk to them, because we see them, because, a lot of times, the challenges that our children face is that they're in situations where they're dehumanized. Absolutely. Right? Like, people don't always see them and see their children. So if you're coming across someone who writes for you specifically and exists to serve you. I always, like, somebody said, "You're so good with the kids." I was like, well, I'm on their payroll. Like, I'm their employee, so like, I work for them. But when it's like, you set that expectation and they can feel the love. Children can feel when they're loved, whether it's in a book, whether it's in an image, whether it's in, just the way you interact with them. And I find that if someone is not on the greatest, on the proper for their age reading level or learning English, as their second language, that affirmation and that love forces them to try harder.
Yes. And I think that love, so one of the things we talk about at Reading Partners is that we don't like to describe our students as being under-resourced. We try to be really mindful of how we describe the students that we serve. And as a mother, and Zenobia is also a mother, she's 2 kids, like, I want to make sure however I'm describing any student that we serve is similar to how their parents or family members would describe them if they're in the room. Yep. So oftentimes it's a lack of resources. We serve students in economically disadvantaged communities. It doesn't mean it's a community where there's not love. They are loved. Right. Absolutely. And so, to share that and to impart that into our greater Reading Partners community is something that's really important, and that we hone in for our tutors and just for the greater community, to let them know, like, yes, bring more love. Nobody's saying you can, like, just as you said, bring joy, bring love, but not in a way where you think that they lack it.
Exactly.
Then you're coming in a way that we don't want any of our tutors or communities to enter our schools. Their families wouldn't want that. Why would you wouldn't want that, for your children, nieces, nephews, or people in your life.
It's about being genuine and authentic.
That's right. Yep.
And really being representative and letting people see themselves in everything.
Mhm.
Yep, absolutely.
It's powerful. It's powerful, honestly, because I can tell you even something that happened on Monday. So I had this exercise because my one of my children's books is called King Khalid is Proud. And again, we talk about this idea that yes, it's affirming when someone's proud of you. To your point, it's affirming when someone's proud of you and they're rooting for you. But
Right.
like, how much more powerful can it be when you do something to make you proud of yourself? And we talk about the idea that most of us, I mean, some people change their names, but most of us use our given name, that we our parents or whomever named us, but we determine what we get to do with it. So
Yeah.
I asked the question, what will you do with your name, right? How will you make yourself proud? And it's so funny because again, if you're like leading with love and they feel it, right? Some kids will just raise their hand and they're always down. And then you have those other kids who are like, whatever. And so, yes, like on Monday, it was like, 30 minutes after this exercise, and this little girl raised her hand. She's like, I didn't get to do the thing. I said, well, what thing? She's like, I didn't get to come up and tell you about. I said, okay, well, come on up. So she gets up and she grabs onto me. She's like, but I'm scared. And I said, hey, class, isn't it cool that her name was Luna. Luna came up and she wants to do this thing, but she's afraid. But she came up anyway. And
Yes.
then she's afraid to present. And then I said, why don't we cheer for her? And the class started chanting, Luna, Luna. And
Oh,
yeah, it was so cute. And then she did it. And I said, that's the power of love and joy. And that's why this week is important and the work we do is important.
that's right.
And you're right, having the right people in place who aren't seeing themselves as like a savior, you're seeing yourself as a supporter of existing greatness, which is a different perspective.
That's right.
So
That's
yeah.
right.
That is powerful. And I mean, I'm thinking as we're talking more and more about representation, there was a phrase I heard someone said that all representation is not good representation. And so I guess I would ask you this question. I mean, I see that you agree with it, but what could you say to speak to that?
Mm.
I would say that internalized racism is real. I would say that, and we can't blame people, if we're born into systems where some of us can believe what's said about Black people, some of us can question our intelligence, and based on what they've learned or the imagery they've seen, and we have to have grace with those people. It does not mean that we let them present to the kids because we don't need the kids internalizing that. But it's real that's true. And there's been times where um I've rejected. So I built a museum in the metaverse, and there's some books that I give people their money back. Like, yes, I really appreciate your sponsorship, but I cannot share this imagery because it depicts, one, it depicts this child, this Black boy in a negative light, and you're a Black author, so I don't really understand why this is necessary. Or, it just depicts something that's not affirming.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, if we already have enough things that are not affirming, I mean, it's built in the structure. So if you're going to take the energy that it creates, that I know it creates, to publish something, to find an illustrator, to write the words and edit it and all these things and all the steps that it takes, how did you not correct for that in those steps? And
Hmm.
for me, you know, I can't, it's not like I'm not trying to judge, but it's kind of like, you have to recognize that we are growing up in systems that have oppressive ideas around Black people, and that people can internalize them. That's just, it happens. And everyone is not built up, from a child, or everyone doesn't have an experience that affirms them in their Blackness. It says, like, hey, you know, I don't have to believe everything that media shares, or the narratives of, like, I hate when people say Black on Black crime. I'm like, okay, really? Like, like the things that people say that are just like, they just like sink in. And if they didn't develop the skills to just acknowledge that stuff is not true, um,
Hmm.
I try not to judge it, but I try to, like, definitely prevent anybody from within my reach from accessing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm.
When I'm thinking as you're talking, how important it is for us when we're talking with young people to make sure that what we do say to them and what we do share with them, like you said, is a positive representation. So tell me some of the experiences you've had as you're doing your reading stories to groups, and tell me about more of those experiences, because I feel like there's so much teaching and so much strength in what you're talking about that people can share, because we have a whole cadre of volunteers that read to our kids and that read across this country. And I think anything that you can share that would help shine a light on how to make that a very positive experience, I think it would be very beneficial. Can you share more of those kinds of stories?
Sure. So, like in terms of like like sharing books with children and the experience.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think, for me, I really love challenging children to create. So I believe in like sharing stories and then really observing what stories resonate with children. And then I love just asking them, is there anything you would change about the story? If you were to write your own story, what would it be? Because it I love and I really do focus a lot on the idea that children can create. I've been interviewing like child authors like all week, and there's young kids who are like empowered and affirmed. And I asked them like, what is it? Tell me what it is that your village did that made you feel like you can do these things. And they said, well, my my mom modeled this behavior. I saw my mom start a business, or I told my mom I was interested in acting, and now I'm going to be on Abbott Elementary. That was a child I interviewed last night, and I was just like, so what I'm understanding is, again, this idea of, yes, we can read to children, but we need to ask their feedback, because we want children to have an opinion. We want them to think critically, and we want them to believe that they can create something and create their own reality in a story or in life. Again, what will you do with your name? So I think not only just sharing stories, but then ask them, so what do you think? I think it's really powerful when an adult asks a child, so what do you think about this? How would you change this? Because then the kid's like, oh, wait, I have a say in something. It's not just the receiving, they're offering up. And then that's affirming and empowering for them, because we want them to, right, be confident enough to share their ideas. And then, a lot of times the kids will say, I'll say, who wants to be a writer? They were like, I want to be a writer. So then, they'll come in and they'll show me. They were like, look, I'm working on this book, and they're like, the first time they meet me, they're so eager. Like, I'm working on this book. I said, well, you know what? Next time I come to this school, please have the pre-order link ready. Like, how can I buy the book? Because last year I remember I was interviewing kids during Black Children's Book Week. I was invited to interview some children who are entrepreneurs, and one of them was like, oh, I'm really great at drawing, and I really love to do sketches. And I said, okay, well, how much is it for a sketch? And they were like, well, if it's in color, it's this, and if it's
I know that's right. I know that's right.
And I said, and I sent my PayPal payment, and I got a sketch, and she threw in an extra one for free. And it's important to like challenge children to like think about the things they can do, and when they do it, support it. Because I was talking to the children yesterday, and I was telling them I wholeheartedly believe that acting on ideas, whether it's like something simple like I'm gonna learn how to make pancakes. And then you learn how to make pancakes, and you're like, oh, I learned how to do that. What's next? It's like, that thing, like, who's next? Go. Everybody's like that meme that's going around, who's next? But it's like, it's a muscle that we're helping them, exercise this muscle. And even if it's something small, like the smaller things lead to the bigger things. And I would even say with Black Children's Book Week, it's the same thing, a smaller thing leading to the bigger thing, because the path was this. I was doing educational programming for teenagers. I said, how can I reach kids earlier? Because teenagers, I love them, but it's a lot of convincing with teenagers, because they've already had a lot of programming. You had a it's a whole thing of convincing them to believe in themselves, and then also resist peer pressure, whole other thing. So because of that, I started writing children's books. And then when I started writing children's books, people said, how can I find other books with Black characters? And I was like, oh, I'm not sure. Then I launched Black Baby Books. And then with Black Baby Books, I said, what can we use? Okay, we have these followers, and that's great. Like, everybody wants to have followers on Instagram. Fabulous, that's nice. But what can we do with this? And I said, we can launch a Black Children's Book Week celebration to celebrate Black children and the representation. So this is, if we're teaching children early to exercise these muscles, they can carry this throughout their life, because it's the same thing that I did.
That's
I was
right.
like doing workshops. Oh, let me write a book. I had no aspirations of becoming an author whatsoever. I didn't even know I was going to be launching Black Children's Book Week. It's the muscle. If you're exercising the muscle, things happen. They develop as a result of what you're committed to and what you're willing to do to be about what you're committed to. So it's not like I had any of this on my vision board.
Yeah. Can you share more about that? And the first time Zenobia and I had the opportunity to talk to you, you talked a little bit about like, this isn't what you set out to do. You didn't wake up one day like, one day I want to be able to write children's books. Can you talk a little bit more about that, just that thread and just your whole, what's the word that I'm looking for? Zenobia, I'm making that.
The pathway, the undercurrent. Yeah. I got you.
That's right.
So let's talk about, again, this is why the other thing I'll say for children, it's if they express an interest in something, expose them to it right away. And a kid yesterday, John Xavier, he's going to be an avid elementary later, the final season. He's so sweet. But he said, I asked him, I was like, how did you get into this? He's like, well, I feel like if kids want to do something, they should tell an adult and they should try it. And even if they don't like it, at least they've tried it. Same. So when I was at Spelman, so I went to Spelman undergrad. When I was at Spelman, I launched a chapter of an organization that taught entrepreneurial principles to children in the local Western Atlanta community. And because you had to be creative doing it, and you had to be judged on how creative you were doing it, that's how I even started working with kids. I had never worked with children really before, except for like little volunteer things in high school. But that was my first experience. Like, okay, I know I don't want to be a teacher because I'm not organized enough. Like, God bless, my sister's a teacher. They lesson plans. So I was like, I know I'm not going to be that, but I know that I'm really great at finding creative ways to reach kids. And that because of just my natural, you have to assess who you are. I'm a naturally, I've been really fortunate. I'm a joyful person. Like who I'm showing up as is actually who I am. Because sometimes people show up and then they're not quite
something else. You get something.
It's always disappointing to me, but okay. But so that's what, like, from that experience, that's what I discovered. Like, oh, I really love finding ways to inspire children. And then I wrote a play because I had lost a cousin through gun violence, and I have a younger brother, and he was just acted out just a little bit, and I said we need a play to motivate these children and inspire them. So then I wrote a play in partnership with my local urban league, and I did it as a fundraiser for them. And I said, oh, okay, that was fun, inspiring children through theater. And I hired like teenagers from the local community, and it was wonderful. And a young kid I hired to play a role, and he had never acted before. Do you know now he's getting like a master's in screenwriting at Columbia University?
Awesome. That's awesome.
But this is the thing. This is why we have to act on our visions. Because I saw his mom, and she was like, "Oh, I got to tell you how you're being in that play at 8 years old. Now I never even took a screenwriting class. I was just, I was like, oh, I could write a play. But he's like now knows he could surely write a better play than me, right? So it's like, again, about activating other people. How just doing what you feel called to do, it just you can't even anticipate the impact. And especially when it's not about you. Like, there's nothing about me that's like, this is about me. Like, I'm not trying to be a celebrity. I'm trying to get the work done. You know what I mean? And I think when you lead like that, it's a different experience where, like, I don't need like people follow me like, hey, but no. We need a world in which Black people, especially our children, can experience more joy. We need a world in which everyone really, but especially Black children, knowing the added barriers because of racism, that they feel confident and comfortable to act on their visions. Because if you think about, like, I was watching the documentary from Motown the other day. If you think about all the contributions that Black people make wherever we are, whether we're here in Cuba and anywhere, like literally anywhere, we make it despite everything else. But it shouldn't be that hard. It really shouldn't be that hard, like it really shouldn't. And I'm always thinking, like, if we didn't even have all these unnecessary barriers, like how much greater could everyone be experiencing this place? If we're going to be here, why can't we have fun? Like, and I mean on earth, like, why can't we have more fun?
Yeah.
So for me, like, I'm just like, okay, I already know that even with all of these obstacles, Black people have managed to do such great things that benefit literally everybody, everybody. And I said, our children need the space and they need to be inspired and empowered and believe that they too can do great things. And it doesn't mean everybody has to be whatever, just your greatest self, like whatever your version is.
Right.
And if you believe in yourself, whatever it is, like if, my grandfather used to say, if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper. You know what I mean? So that's what we're looking for. And it's not, it shouldn't be unattainable. That's why I think, Black Children's Book Week is about, it's taking off because it's saying like, hey, I could do something. And that's what people are doing. If I had to rely on me to do all these events everywhere, like, no, I don't have the resources, first of all, and I don't have the time, and I'm here, like, I'm one person. But that's the cool thing about sharing your vision is that it activates other people, and it leads to things that every day I'm looking online like, oh, this happened during Black Children's Week. That is so cool. And I'm like, that's the people like, oh, I wish I could be there, because there's like every day I look online and there's like stuff everywhere. There's, like Chicago, there's like 4 events in Detroit, Oakland, different parts of California. Again, like I said, Ghana tagged us, someone, an organization in Ghana. Everywhere. I mean, I think everywhere, a lot of places. And it's amazing. I'm like, every day I'm texting my friends like, oh my gosh, look, can you all believe this?
Absolutely.
So
That's incredible. And go ahead, Zenobia.
No, I was just going to say Veronica's energy is intoxicating, right?
Yes.
And it's the spirit by which you do the work. And so that's why, you're activating people everywhere to really understand the seriousness of, exposing kids to the right representation, exposing kids to literacy in the right way, making people feel included. So it's just powerful, just listening to you.
And to further that, I 100% agree with you, Zenobia. You're not centering you.
Yep.
You're not centering your book.
Absolutely.
You're not centering this great idea, website, company you created. You're centering the needs of young Black children.
Yes.
And that's why the success is coming, right? And I just think there's something really powerful about that. Like this work, it's not about us. If we're doing the work the right way, it's not about us. It's about how we activate others.
Exactly.
And not to try and be cheesy, but that's why what we do at Reading Partners works. And that's why it matters. Because it's not me saying, I'm going to just do this thing. It's how our mission in this organization is to activate others.
Absolutely.
People are sick and tired of being sick and tired of what they're seeing in the news, of how young Black and brown children are being failed, right? In so many different ways. I'm just going to leave that there. And they want to make a difference. And as a nonprofit CEO, I'm going to say money definitely helps to make a difference, but so does your time. And so to be able to say, you know what, I have an hour every week and I want to give that hour to a young person because I care, because I want to make a difference. And you are part of the reason now that a young person can read. And in your case, you're part of the reason a young man has gone off to Columbia and is going to do great things and then hire you to write a couple more plays and and be his screenwriter.
That'd be wonderful.
This work is activating communities. And I think that's the powerful statement. When you look at Reading Partners and you connect to the work you're doing, is activating communities to solve the problem. That's what has to happen.
And that's the thing. That's what we need, because we don't need people looking at like somebody who they feel like has it all. First of all, they're still human. You don't even know these people. Okay. Like, you can't just assume that because so-and-so is wealthy or whatever, they have it all. And that's not to say that we're hoping that they don't. We're saying that focus on what you have.
Yep, that's right.
And do what you can. And we just, like you're saying, like, we need, like Zenobia, what you said, like, we need more people activated. And the thing, there's a whole checklist for Black Children's Book Week. And some people, they're hosting events. But I said, listen, if you're in Target and you see a Black child, give them an extra smile. Happy Black Children's Book Week. You know what I mean? Like, it's everybody can participate in this. You don't have to buy nothing. Like, write a review for a book on Amazon that you bought. That's a Black children's book that you love. It doesn't have to cost. It doesn't cost anything. Anybody can participate, and that's the other thing that I think it's just like really important because I tell people it's so funny. So sometimes I meet people, in person, and I'm like, so what are you doing? And they got all these grand plans for Black Children's Book Week. I said, that sounds stressful. I think you should scale back a little bit. I think you should like reconsider because it's supposed to be fun. I don't want you to be losing money or whatever. Like, listen, here's the goal. Please don't do that. Like, if it's something you can't do, fine, but like, don't stress yourself out. This is supposed to be a fun, joyful thing for you to do. And they're always laughing, like, Veronica, you're a trip. I'm like, I'm serious. Don't do that. Like, I'm not even doing that. So
That's
yeah.
powerful. That's powerful. I mean, it is because, if you can get people to really, it's the small stuff. It's not the huge things. It's the small things that we can do. I mean, that we think are small, but really, it's a big thing when you activate a community where somebody wants to read to a kid, right? To help them read better, or somebody wants to have an event to celebrate the importance of reading. So it's a big thing in that regard, but it's very small in the scheme of what we need to do to keep activating communities and students. So yeah, no, that you're as usual, you always make me, my head kind of spins with all the stuff that you're saying. It's very powerful. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. But it's been like an absolute joy. And I promise you, everything I'm like, oh wow, look at this. It's just because it's so, again, like you said, I'm not centering myself. I'm sitting here like in awe, like, oh, this is amazing what she's doing in, Oakland, or like, check out this event in Baltimore Reads, or a group called there's like 2 events in Baltimore that I know of. And you all are hosting an event. I met you. This is what I'm saying. This is all from an idea and a vision that we all collected. And of course, it resonates with people who care about Black children.
That's right.
And it helps us find each other.
Yes.
One of the questions we asked you as we were in the we weren't really in the green room, but it was like we were in the green room. We hadn't gone live yet. Was about your favorite book. And I so appreciated what you said. And I don't know if you remember exactly what you said, but if we could maybe start there. I think we posed the question, what's one of your favorite books? And what you first said was awesome. And then you went into,
is it about Stevie Wonder when I first
said? It was about Stevie Wonder, but then
I said, how dare you ask me what my favorite children's book is? Because it's like asking me what my favorite Stevie Wonder song is, which if I had to choose one for my life, I may not survive, is all I'm saying, if I had to choose my favorite Stevie Wonder song. But I would say that my most recent book that I absolutely love is a children's book by Claudia Walker, who also happens to be a Spelmanite. Like we're not the same year, so I didn't know, but she's amazing. I met her on Zoom, and it's a book called The ABCs of Black Wall Street, and just having a super colorful, powerfully executed publication that captures the history of Black Wall Street, one that we know that is not often included in schools, and they're doing a great job of trying to keep it from being in schools. Isn't that funny? All that, this is what I'm talking about. Imagine if we spent our life responding to the whims of craziness like this. We can't live like that.
That's right.
We really can't live like that. That's why we have to just collectively do what we're doing.
Well, joy is an act of resistance. And I think you epitomize that, right? I mean, there have been so many comments just about your joy. There have been so many Veronica-isms. Yes, I think this is being recorded. But you have dropped so many great quotes. And I'm not trying to end anything. I'm just trying to give you flowers while we still have like 15 minutes. But you have, and it has been beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy. Like, I feel like I'm meeting family, like family reunion, so I really appreciate you all inviting me to even like share this story, because like it gets more people involved, because people are like, okay, somebody from Cameroon was like, I'm just capturing this, but next year Cameroon's going to be on the map. There's like the more people are finding out about it, because there's been an explosion because of you all too, hosting events and making sure that people are more aware of this. Next year is going to be, every year following is going to be amazing. And it's important to me. The cool thing about it being so the video from the launch event is on YouTube. And the great thing about it is, and this is not a morbid thing, this is just life, right? We all went through a pandemic. We lost a lot of people. The great thing about it is that the intention will always be there. Like, whether I'm here or not, the intention will always be there. There will be people, like you said, oral traditions of like caring, okay, well, this is the intention behind it. And this is something that our children can have in our communities, and all people who love Black children can have for years to come. And unfortunately, it will be necessary. And fortunately, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, in the sense that I wish everybody loved themselves, because if they did, they wouldn't be envious and they wouldn't have time to be committed to white supremacy. That's
Yeah.
why, honestly, I'm rooting for everybody to get it together, because the world would be much more enjoyable for more people if they could. But if they don't, we still gotta have fun and do what we can do for our kids. And and again about sorry, like I think I like got like shampoo in my eye or something. I don't know.
Take your time.
So
But
good.
but I think the thing about launching something like this is that I think I like lost my train of thought because like my eye was like stinging. But what was I saying before this? Oh, about people loving themselves and everything. So I just feel like when we're talking about authentically showing up and we're talking about creating something that you're authentically able to do, I know what it is to be a Black child. I've been called dumb and had my intelligence questioned, right? So we're
Mm,
thinking about the people we serve by creating something like this. That's why it's so specific, a Black Children's Book Week, because people want to say like, "Oh, you're so racist." Well, it's not me who's had this lived experience. Well, who's supposed to launch it? So when you want Walmart to trademark it, they don't know what it's like to grow up Black. Like
mm.
how does this go? I don't understand. And when I get messages like that, I say, hey, as a human, you could do better and be better, and I'm rooting for you. Like, I
That's
wish
right.
you the best, because honestly, if people learn to love, and that's the bottom line, like if people were better at loving themselves and other people. And I tell this to kids all the time when I'm in the meeting, like, hey, do you think a bully really loves themselves? Can a bully, if someone's bullying you in class, can they really love themselves? And they're like, no, no. And I say, well, that's why I write these books. So I want you to love yourself so you can spread love. Because if you
That's
don't love yourself, like it's going to be so much harder on you, your community,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So, I mean, that's really what it's about. But so I would say, my friends always laugh at me because I'm like, well, I know everybody's not trying to be great. And they're like, here Veronica goes, and then everybody's not trying to be great things. But I was like, I know everybody's not trying to be great. So that is why something like this will always be necessary. And I'm glad it's documented. I'm glad that more people are learning about it, because, like I said before, it'll be scheduled joy, right? Scheduled joy. Because if you think about it, and I'm just thinking about how I felt when like online when like George Floyd was murdered, and there's a whole list, right? Unfortunately. But think about like how we felt, right?
Yep.
And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, we can't keep feeling like this, because people will give up.
Yes.
People will give up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason why I was like, we need something like this, because we can't afford to give up. Because we
Absolutely.
have children coming into this world, and they need to they need to feel like they need to feel like it can be good for them.
That's right.
So yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it is. All right, let me
Well,
get
I
my
like what you said about we can't afford to give up, and that's powerful in statement in and of itself, because you're right. If we keep seeing negative representations, negative images, you force people down that road. So this is really truly bringing joy in a way that young people, all of us need, but young people specifically, we
Yep.
can't afford for them to give up anyway, because they are what we will lead us into the future. So
That's
we can't
right.
afford for our young people to give up. And so
That's
this is,
right.
yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
right before I launched Black Children's Book Week, I was talking. So I don't have children. I have godchildren, and I feel like I have children because I have all of these people's children,
Absolutely.
and like people who read my books, or so but when everything was going on, and with the way that they publicize Black death, the way that it's just everywhere, and the
Mhm.
way that our children are exposed to it. And my godson was told his mom, I don't want to grow up to be a Black man because they kill us.
Mm.
How is it that we live in a world where we want the children to not want to grow up because they feel like they'll be murdered?
Yeah.
That's
Mm.
crazy. And they were like, well, you have to get your grades so you can. They're like, become what? I'm going to be murdered. This is what
Mm.
kids are thinking when they're seeing these things. And I said, when I said that, I said, oh my goodness. And this is a child who's driven, who like came out the womb like, I want to be this and this. And, he's one of those like and I want to do this. And the parents are like, okay, we'll help you. He has the support. But what about kids who don't have the support?
That's right.
So
That's right.
yeah, that's why it's important that we all work together, because we can't, again, like you said, it can't be like we can't center ourselves because we can't reach everybody if we center ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
It takes a community. It takes a village.
Mhm.
At Reading Partners, we say we do this work with our communities, not to them or for them.
Yeah.
Right. It's with them. That's when we're most successful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're not labs in a laboratory. You know what I
No,
mean?
they're not.
They're living the lives that we're trying to help them do better with.
That's
So
right.
we have to give them respect and also give them, things that help affirm them. So
And honor them, right?
Yes.
Kids feel it when you honor them. When you honor their humanity and you honor their possibilities, they're like, oh, they don't even, I get so many hugs. These children don't know me. I show up and they're like, oh, thank you, Veronica. And like, I'm just like, these children don't know me. They have never met me. They've never met me before. But they can feel it. They feel it. And so
And they can see themselves in you, Veronica, and that you exude such joy.
Absolutely.
Speaking of honoring, you said that, you honor them, and that's part of the reason they then love you back and they reciprocate the love and joy that they experience from your books and from your talks. If you had to give everyone on this YouTube streaming channel, I think there are probably hundreds of people here, what are 3 individual actions that you think that we could take to encourage Black children to believe in themselves through literacy? We see that you are taking a lot and you continue to do that. But are there 3? At Reading Partners, we like to think in 3s, right, Zenobia?
Yep, absolutely.
I can give you 3, but I'm going to give you my top 1.
Ooh, that's even better. All right, we're ready.
And it was proven yesterday. That's why you had to talk to the children. It was proven yesterday in this interview I did yesterday with a 17-year-old author and entrepreneur. I say, if possible, so let me back up. One of the ways to celebrate Black Children's Book Week is to support Black bookstores. So I've been doing this whole thing where I can. I've gone to Philly to visit a Black bookstore. I take video, Newark, New Jersey, Boston, wherever I go now, I go visit the Black bookstores, because the reality is that Black bookstores tend to have the greatest selection of Black children's books. And it's like some of them have walls and walls full of Black children's books. And so yesterday, I was interviewing a young man. His name is Sidney Keys III. He is the founder of Books and Bros. He created like a book club for Black boys. He's a Black young man, 17, but he also recently came out with a children's book about how to discover positive books with Black boys for your Black children, Black sons, Black children. So I asked him, I said, well, what's something that inspired you? Like, what is something that you saw or heard that really inspired you, that lets you know that you can do these things? And he said his mother took him to I See Me bookstore in St. Louis, Missouri. That was where he's from. And he said going in there and seeing himself represented in those books was the most powerful thing ever. And that seeing all of the books that they had there with Black representation really inspired him to start the book club, to get the books, get other boys reading representative books. And then now he's an author. And honestly, I'm telling you that if you know how they do like Black college tours, y'all need to do Black book tours with the kids, because there's nothing like it. Honestly, when I visit these Black bookstores, I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know. And this one, and this one, and this one. There's like, and great books, not just a book, really great ones.
Did you go to Uncle Bobby's in Philly?
I did. I did. And I have more, because I think there's another one there I need to check out. But I'm even trying to go this summer. I'm like trying to go to Toronto. There's one in Toronto, because I noticed when I came out with my first children's book, and then my second, this bookstore called Knowledge Bookstore in Toronto, every time they post, my books would be in their store. I'm like, how do they even know I came out with a book? Like, I don't know if they're like stalking Black titles or what. But, in Canada, there's another Black bookstore. And I'm telling you, I know there's Malik bookstore in California, I think Oakland or somewhere in the California area. But that's what I think. I think our kids need to go on field trips to Black bookstores. And if you need a chaperone, if you all do one with your children, I will gladly come chaperone for the field trip.
So the biggest thing is visiting Black bookstores.
Right.
Anything else that you recommend that we can do to encourage Black children to believe in themselves through literacy? Honor them. You said that earlier.
And then the other one that I said earlier, which was one of my three, was asking for their feedback on the books you're reading, and then
Yes.
asking them, give them the power of the pen, asking them to tell their own stories. I think that is powerful because we want children to feel like they're in a position of power, right?
Mhm.
That they could, because then they're like, because you right, then they can be activated because they're like, okay, well, you want to see that story, like go write that story. And I
Mhm.
told you, it's kind of funny. So yesterday, or Monday, and this is not a dig on adults, but I told the kids, I was like, guess what? I have a secret. And they said, what? I said, actually, I just want you to understand that, you can get to be an older adult and still not believe in yourself. Like it's possible that you can grow up to be a full adult and not believe in yourself. Because they were like, well, why do you write? And I said, well, I write because I want you to believe in yourself now. I want you to grow up believing yourself. So that they started shouting, I want to believe in myself now. It was so funny.
I love it.
I want to believe in myself right now.
Yep.
So that's why I feel like we need to, because I think a lot of times adults, I don't have children, okay? So when in my observations, the dynamics between adults and children, I feel like they're shifting. But a
Mhm.
lot of times I grew up, I wasn't precocious, but I could have a voice and I could have an opinion. And actually, I've always had good common sense. So like my mom and my aunts be like, Veronica, what do you think about this? There's nothing more powerful than asking a child, what do you
Yes.
think about this?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's what we should be asking them. What do you think about this?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, your first statement about taking kids to Black bookstores, I think adults should go to Black bookstores.
Absolutely.
That's a place where you're going to find diversity and seeing kids show up in all different ways, especially if you're working with and you're trying to build literacy in students or in young people. What a wonderful way to do that, especially when your population is, as Ola said, more than 90% Black and brown. So
Right.
what a wonderful way to help kids tell their stories by listening to other people that are telling stories that you might be able to use and glean from that. So I think that's an awesome idea. It's not just for kids, it's for everybody.
It's
That's
not
right.
just for kids. It's not, and that's another way to like discover the other people are like part of the people who love Black children. A lot of these Black bookstores, they love Black children. They have Black children. They love them. They want to make sure they see themselves represented. So it's
That's
like
right.
building out the coalition of people who care about our children.
That's right.
Mhm.
We are going to end on that note. Can you believe it's already time?
No, I can't because I was
I
having so
know.
much fun.
I know. I know. We got to do this again. We have to do
Yeah.
this again.
Yes.
Zenobia, thank you as my co-host.
Thank you.
Veronica and Chapman, thank you, our new friend. We appreciate you.
And thank
This has
you.
been extraordinary.
Thank you.
And we've just been so honored to get to talk to you. Zenobia, anything you want to say as we wrap?
I'm just feeling as usual. Every time we talk to Veronica, it's like a light shining in a room because
Yes.
she comes to us with so much great stuff. So I really thank you all for inviting me to do this. And Veronica, the best person I've ever met in my entire career. I really applaud you and the work you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I really honestly
And you know you're at the top of my chain. So
yeah.
I'll say great thing. Great job.
I feel so loved. Thank you so much. Thank you, Reading Partners, for having me. I'm so just really grateful.
Absolutely.
Yay. And thank you all in the Reading Partners virtual universe. We appreciate y'all coming today. And we're glad that you enjoyed. Looks like y'all enjoyed based on your chats. We're glad that you enjoyed hearing from Veronica because we certainly did too. And we hope the rest of you have a great day. And Black History Month may be over, but everything that we've talked about does not have to be over. It is part of the history. And that's why we did this today of all days.